Hey everyone, Naxx is coming out in probably 2 months, so I'm going to update my AQ40 guide and come out with a Naxx BIS guide for DPS warriors. What I'm showing you now on screen is the absolute best in slot that you can have as a human warrior, and I'm going to swap this really quickly. This is the best in slot that you can have as a horde warrior. Feel free to screenshot this. These ones are actually correct. Unlike my last video, these do sim absolutely the best. The reason for changes, I will get into that for why things are which way. So for example, you see Gressel and Hungry Cold. You have main hand, offhand on Horde side. Alliance side, it is ignore the sim. There's just some buffs that are incorrect. When you go on Alliance side, they're swapped around. I'll cover why that is, and I'll cover why this is completely different if I sim this. Again, the buffs get re-swapped when I go between Horde and Alliance. If I click the Phase 6 BIS, I'm going to show you why it is significantly higher picking those items rather than what is listed here. So stick around if you're interested, and let's get into it. Nice thing about Naxx is every single mob except for 2 is going to be undead, so I've changed the mob type to undead to show the best setup for most of the raid. Anyways, back to the gear. Lionheart Helm. This does not change for the entire game. You're going to be using Lionheart Helm with 8 strength. Stormrage's Talisman of Seething. This is the best neck in the game. Drops off of KT. They got this one right. If we move to Barbed Choker, if I can speak, if we move to Barbed Choker, you can see that this does sim worse. It's not by much, so neck upgrade isn't super relevant, but it is going to be worse than Stormrage's Talisman of Seething. You want to be using this one. Conqueror Spalders, and again, this has the new Saffron enchant on it. This is worse than Mantle of Wicked Revenge for both Horde and Alliance. If we sim this, we're going to be getting, again, a few DPS extra picking that item. Cloak, Shroud of Dominion. So curiously, I was thinking that the Fallen God Cloak was going to sim a lot better on Alliance than this. I found that this one tends to sim like 3 DPS higher than Cloak of the Fallen God, even on Alliance. On Horde side, this one is definitely better. It's still not by much. But if we go ahead and do this here, yeah, it's just some variance in the sims, and I don't have all of my enchants set up, but I have been finding that the Shroud of Dominion is simming a little bit higher on Alliance. You do want to be using the lesser agility enchant over subtlety. Subtlety is really not going to reduce your threat that much, and if you pull off of the tank and you have the boss on you, you can just ask for heals, you can get in position, and hopefully the tank can pull it back from you. You shouldn't really be ripping aggro, especially on Alliance side. And on Horde side, you know, hey, sometimes you just got to be ready for that. Plated A-Bomb Ribcage, of course. This is the one that, you know, all the warriors, you look at Naxx, this is the one plate chest that's got DPS stats on it. Don't take this item. You can get a ghoul skin tunic off of trash by just farming it with your mages. This thing is literally free. It's not going to cost you any loot priority. You don't need to like SR this or anything. You can just go into a bunch of Naxx BOE trash farms. People will be advertising them in chat. People in your guild will be doing them, and you can just go get this item before you even complete one raid. You can just keep resetting and killing the ghouls at the start of the dungeon. Very, very easy for mages to do. It just takes a while. You're more than, you know, they'll want you to be there to help speed it up, or you can just AFK at the entrance if you want. So this is a very, very easy pickup. And as we sim here, it is significantly better than that A-Bomb Ribcage. Wow, did you see that? It's like a 12 DPS increase to take this item that isn't going to cost you any loot priority. You may say, well, oh, this is a leather item. It sucks. No, it doesn't. This has more armor and stamina than SGC. So if you felt tanky wearing SGC, you'll be perfectly fine wearing a ghoul skin tunic. If you don't believe me, I'm just going to hover over it. Savage Gladiator Chain, 369 armor, and it has 13 stamina. This has 411 armor, 22 stamina. So a lot tankier than SGC. Still not on the same level of like a Conqueror's Breastplate, but definitely very, very good. Moving on to Riskard's of Vengeance. This is worse than Hive Defiler on Alliance. It is better than Hive Defiler on Horde. So if we sim this here, and this is just due to the King's buff, it's very close regardless, but you will see overall that this will sim up higher. If you want to take Vengeance on Alliance, it's perfectly fine. There's really nothing wrong with the item. It gives you tank stats. It just has flat crit rather than 18 agility, which gets buffed by ZG and Kings to be at a higher crit amount and strength amount on Alliance versus Horde. I'm not going to touch weapons here, but I will touch the ranged weapon. Nerubian Slave Maker is better than Soulstring. If we're talking absolute BIS here, Nerubian Slave Maker just has more AP on it. Hunter is obviously probably going to get the first one, maybe even the second one, but after that, it's going to be open to warriors if they want it. There's something to talk about with KT drops is there's one melee DPS item that drops a week from KT, and that counts Nerubian Slave Maker and shit like Might of Menethil. So you're gonna have a tough time getting a sword and getting a Slave Maker. If you don't have this item, the Oro Gun is what I would consider to be the next best item. If we can sim this, I'll cover some of the options later, but yeah, that or Soulstring. But for absolute BIS, Nerubian Slave Maker is number one. Gauntlets of Annihilation from AQ40, those are BIS. If you want to switch to the Gloves of Enforcement from AQ40, only a couple DPS lost, less than 10. Girdle of the Mentor is going to dethrone the Onslaught Girdle. It is quite a minor upgrade if you actually have an Onslaught Girdle. So if you do have an Onslaught Girdle, go for another item, spend your priority somewhere else. If you don't have an Onslaught Girdle, this item is excellent, has great crit on it, does have hit, that's okay. We need to get our 6% hit somewhere. When I change out absolutely everything, you're either going to have 6 or 7% hit depending on the items that you choose. So this is one of the better ones to get hit on because it's either on OSG or this, or Belt of Never-Ending Agony if you get that from AQ40 and all your rogues already have one. Leg Plates of Carnage. This item is amazing. Unlike the chest, the plate one is actually significantly better than the leather one. If we sim what our DPS is looking like now, 2120, and then we switch to the Leggings of Apocalypse, which is the other Naxx option, you're going to see that this one is a bit worse. It's still going to be an upgrade over Conquerors or Titanic or anything else you might have, so don't feel too bad if you get Leggings of the Apocalypse. The Leg Plates of Carnage are just absolute BIS. Chromatic Boots. First of all, you want to be using greater agility on your boots. The ZG buff or the Zanza, they don't stack with a minor run speed increase. It's just the highest one that you have is applied to your character. So if you have Zanza, that's applied. If you have ZG but not Zanza, ZG is applied. If you have none of them and you have minor speed, then minor speed is applied. Because if you're going for like high DPS and you're most likely not going to be dying, you're in a speed run, something like that, agility is going to be better for you because minor speed would just be overruled by ZG buff anyway. And if you die, you're not going to parse, so like who cares? So just don't worry about putting minor speed on your boots. You should be rocking 7 agility if you can. And you'll see that that actually pumps our DPS by about 10, going from effectively no enchant on your boot to a 7 enchant on your boot. I am going to say that Boots of the Vanguard are your absolute BIS here. They're going to be slightly better than Chromatic Boots. They've got 2 extra strength and agi, though I personally would probably still wear Chromatic Boots because, again, hit has a tiny bit of value, and you are significantly tankier with Chromie Boots. Plus, I personally already have them, and I see no reason to switch to these. Band of Unnatural Forces. This ring is BIS. The list gets this correct. Band of Unnatural Forces is very strong. This is like a Don Julio's band on crack, which they have. I don't know, why do they have Don Julio's band as second BIS ring on this list? This is terrible. Absolutely nuts if you're going to be using Don Julio's band at this point. You should hopefully have like a Master Dragon Slayer's ring, which is probably even better. Yeah, you can see that this is even a little bit better from Nefarian. Circle of Applied Force is going to be your absolute BIS on Alliance. That's like 10-12 DPS more than taking that other item, stupid Don Julio's band. And then Quick Strike Ring on Alliance is also going to be very competitive. So if you've got Circle of Applied Force or Quick Strike Ring, use one of those. Don't use your Don Julio's anymore. Get the Band of Unnatural Forces. And if you don't, you can do Circle of Applied Force and then you can do Quick Strike Ring. That would be your other option. I'm going to give a small shout out to this Band of Reanimation that just has a ton of agility. Like this thing is going to sim about the same as a Circle of Applied Force or a Quick Strike Ring. Doesn't have any other stats, but 34 agi is massive. So, your hunters and rogues are done with rings. They don't want this for whatever reason. I know rogues are going to want unnatural in the tier set, but this is like a decent option. If you don't have Circle of Applied Force or a Quick Strike Ring, go ahead and throw that on. It's not going to cost you like any loot priority to get you a 34 agi ring. Kiss of the Spider is the BIS trinket in the game, especially, so I am simming on a 60-second fight here, which is the best possible fight for Diamond Flask. Kiss of the Spider is actually just better than Diamond Flask, and Kiss scales better if you have a fight that goes over 2 minutes where you can use it twice. I believe 2 minutes and 15 seconds, you can use it again, so you would want a 2 minute and 30 second fight to get the full duration out of it. or very short fights, something like 30 seconds where you're getting a full 15 seconds, but that's half the fight. The 20% attack speed increase is huge. Also to keep in mind, Kiss of the Spider has a 1% crit, 1% hit buff on it that's just statically applied to you at all times. So you don't really need to take this off, and it gives you a lot of stats. Diamond Flask, this is where you get a big upgrade. Diamond Flask will still be used for trash, stuff like that, certain fights, but Mark of the Champion, 150 attack power against 12 of the 14 bosses at Naxx is just, yeah, look at that. It's like 60 DPS over the other option. Very crazy trinket. Though I will say, 30-second fight, 35-second fight specifically, boom, Slayer's Crest. You put that 20-second cooldown on, then you do the Kiss of the Spider right after. Insane item. Again, you can see it here. It's very competitive with Diamond Flask if I type that in. If I can click in the right spot. We're going to do our sim. Yeah, it's better than Diamond Flask even on the 1-minute fight to do Kiss of the Spider plus Slayer's Crest. Though, essentially, you're going to keep Mark of the Champion on at all times and then just rotate your on-use. The best on-use is going to be Kiss of the Spider. So there you have it. That's the walkthrough for the Alliance BIS. Aside from the weapons. Weapons are contentious in Naxxramas, of course. You have some amazing ones off of the final boss in Gressel and Hungering Cold. So as we see here, we're simming, 2210 DPS about. Look what happens on Alliance side if we do something like Iblis in the main hand. Did you see that? Wow, 50 DPS increase. This isn't the most relevant DPS increase in the world. And what I mean by that is that in the real world, where you've got really high flurry uptime, because we're at 60% here, and we have Kiss of the Spider, this is simming better because it's saying that you can heroic strike more in the fight. So if I go to my results of the rotation here, it's showing that I cast heroic strike 56 times during the fight. And if I go back to my gear and I put on Gressel, boom, results. I cast it 33 times in the fight. That's a big DPS increase, casting 25 more heroic strikes or whatever that is. The problem is, with like a 1.6 or 1.5 speed weapon, you are going to get rage starved. Even with full world buffs and consumes, the only fight this is technically possible on is maybe on Sapphiron with the Thaddeus buff, if you carry that through. Possibly on Thaddeus himself, and then also Veilstraws. So there's only a couple bosses where it's really viable to have that extremely fast weapon. To use it optimally, otherwise you'd have to be like canceling heroic strike like extremely often and be on top of it. And I think it's just unlikely that it's going to actually outperform Gressel in the long run, keeping Iblis in the main hand. Again, then there's also the possibility that, hey, the absolute best sim, right, the highest that you can get is running THC Gressel like this. And again, that's going to be even worse. You've got 1.5 speed in the main hand now, so you've got to be absolutely on top of your heroic strike, especially with those buffs. Something that's probably not going to happen, again, this is 2 Naxx weapons. You're probably only getting 1 in Anniversary, and then you're moving to Era, and then you have to open that whole can of worms for how you're going to get your next one. But yes, if you want to look at absolute pure full BIS, it is this setup. This is going to be your BIS setup for 12 of the 14 bosses in Naxx, and for the other ones, it's going to be Slayer's Crest over the static trinket. If we go over to Horde, I'll swap here. Yeah, I actually haven't set it to anything. The only difference is for Horde, again, if I change my settings really quickly, 1 second, I'm going to make myself an orc. I'm going to put on both of the powerful totems, though I don't know if that's completely going to happen. And then I'm going to put on Wind Fury on. Here's our baseline with the same Alliance set that was going on. You're going to see a big increase on Horde if I go ahead and switch around my weapons. Horde tends to like a heavier hitting weapon in the main hand due to Wind Fury procs, so the heroic strike thing doesn't really work on Horde. You're just going to want to have Gressel in the main hand. Even on the other fights that it says it might not be best for, you want Gressel in the main hand for Horde for sure, and I think you probably want it in the main hand for Alliance as well. Hive Defilers, we switched those up for Vengeance. Those are going to be better on Horde side. Mantle of Wicked Revenge is still very good. The rest of this doesn't really change, but it's the Vanguard. We just don't want Circle of Applied Force. Ring of Karaji Fury is going to be a better option. So there you have it. That's the absolute BIS that you can get in Naxxramas. That being said, there are a lot of items that you're not going to get on this BIS list. Going off of what we've done in the past, we have about 15 lockouts of Naxx. You might have 25 warriors in your raid. You probably don't, but if you're a guild like ours, you're speedrunning, you have a lot of warriors. They're all going to be wanting these things. Which one is the best? That's something that's worth taking a look at. Going back to Alliance here, all of the buffs are set up correctly, and we go back to our gear and we sim it with all of the correct items in the correct slots. We're showing 2207.9 DPS. Let's change out some of the more contested items here just to show you what's going to happen with weapons, because let's be honest, even on Horde side, you're probably not getting both of these weapons. You may get one, so let's figure out which one is actually the best. If we throw Chromatically Tempered Sword in the main hand, and then we throw, let's say, the R14 Swiftblade in the offhand, because I believe this is actually the best offhand. Maladeath is close, but this is better. And then we go ahead and we take off Kiss and we put on a Diamond Flask. Because I believe those to be the most contentious items, right? The weapons and the Kiss of the Spider, they're the biggest individual upgrades, and you might want to decide, hey, I want one over the other. First, let's take a look at Gressel in the main hand. 2102 DPS, Gressel in the main hand, 2140 DPS. So about a 40 DPS increase for putting Gressel on. Very good. You can't go wrong with picking this. Let's go back to what we have with CTS. Back to that 2104 baseline, let's put the Hungering Cold in the offhand. Wow, almost a 60 DPS increase putting Hungering Cold on. So Hungering Cold is a little bit better than Gressel. And Hungering Cold could potentially go in the main hand on some of those very fast fights, and you can parse higher if you can spam your Heroic Strike enough. So it does look like Hungering Cold is a little bit better than Gressel for Alliance. For Horde, it's going to be the same for Warriors, because Hungering Cold gives you the sword skill, which allows you to put CTS in the main hand. CTS, very, very strong. You can't go wrong with that weapon, or you can even run a GM weapon in your main hand, and then you can run Gauntlets of Annihilation. You won't need Edge Masters at that point. So Gressel is kind of tough to use on Horde because you either need Edge Masters or you need both of the weapons, and that's just a tall ask. Your first Gressel on Horde, like, I hate to say it, but like maybe even give it to a Rogue. Like, it's a great item, it's an amazing item, but you need a lot of things to make it work, and you really want THC first. We will switch back to the Swiftblade and take a look at Kiss of the Spider. So this is on a 60-second fight, keep in mind. So it's showing a smaller upgrade on a 60-second fight. However, Kiss of the Spider, you're going to use it a lot throughout the raid, so it's going to make you do more damage on things like trash. And on any fights that are not 1 minute, where Diamond Flask has the most value comparatively, Kiss of the Spider is just going to be better. Especially if you make it to a fight where it's very long, where you get 2 activations of this trinket, or a fight that's very short, where you're like close to 50% uptime of the fight being on this trinket. By pure DPS on a 1 minute fight, which I'm simming, Kiss is a little bit worse than the other options, but in a lot of situations, Kiss is going to be the very best. I can prove this to you by just putting this to a 30-second fight with a duration plus or minus 5. Kiss suddenly goes to 2422, and then let's say, you know, maybe Earth Strike's now the next best trinket, 2422. If I put on Gressel, we're not even coming close. So yeah, if you are concerned about your parses primarily, Kiss is going to be your best option because it's most flexible in the fights, and it's going to give you a higher boost on some of those short fights and very long fights. For that reason, Kiss is probably the #1 pick for one item if you want them out of the 3, but if you want something to look cool and to be good, you take THC, and if you just love Gressel for whatever reason, hey man, take Gressel, though it is a little bit worse than the other options. Anyways, I hope you found that helpful, and feel free to like and subscribe. I will be posting more Warrior content, be very, very active when Naxx comes out, and I'm happy to talk in the comments, do some theory crafting with you, and answer some of your questions about loot. Again, refer to the beginning of the video where I have the full BIS lists, and make sure that you're not coming into your next raid with minor speed on your boots if you have world buffs. Have a great day.